Last night, your person opened up to their friends and said, "I'm finally ready to admit this." Something shifted in the middle of an ordinary conversation, and for a split second, every voice around the table disappeared. One person looked down at their untouched drink, took a slow breath, and quietly whispered, "I'm finally ready to admit this." No one interrupted. No one smiled. Even the music in the background suddenly felt distant, as if the night itself wanted to hear the next sentence. But before those waiting friends could react, something happened that made the confession even more unforgettable. Stay close, because one tiny detail from that moment changes everything you think you know. The evening had started like countless others. Laughter echoed across the patio lights. Stories bounced from one friend to another. Someone joked about old memories. Someone else mentioned unexpected second chances. Then, without warning, the conversation drifted toward love. Not the easy kind, but the kind that lingers long after people stop talking about it. Your person had been quiet all night, listening more than speaking. Their friends noticed it. One leaned forward and gently asked, "Is there something you've been holding back?" There was no immediate answer. Just a thoughtful smile that disappeared almost as quickly as it came. A long silence settled over the group. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that carries invisible weight. Keep watching this story unfold, because the next few moments revealed emotions no one around the table expected to witness. Your person looked toward the city lights stretching beyond the restaurant windows. Cars moved in the distance. Conversations floated from nearby tables. Yet somehow everything around them seemed to fade away. One friend quietly said, "You always avoid this subject." Another nodded. "Maybe tonight is different." Those words seemed to unlock something hidden. Your person slowly placed both hands on the table and admitted they were exhausted from pretending everything was simple. They confessed that every attempt to move forward somehow circled back to one familiar face. They admitted that no distraction had ever completely replaced the connection they once felt. The friends exchanged surprised glances, not because they expected drama, but because they had never heard such honesty before. One of them softly asked, "Then why haven't you said anything?" Your person didn't answer right away. Instead, they looked down with a quiet smile that carried equal parts hope and uncertainty. "There's another layer to this conversation you haven't seen yet, and it's far more meaningful than the confession itself." The air felt different now. The playful atmosphere had transformed into something deeply personal. No phones were being checked anymore. No one was rushing to change the topic. Everyone understood they were witnessing a turning point. One friend gently encouraged them. "If you've realized something important, don't let fear speak louder than your heart." Those words lingered longer than anyone expected. Your person slowly nodded and finally admitted they had spent too much time convincing themselves the timing was never right. They confessed they had replayed old conversations, remembered tiny details others would have forgotten, and wondered whether silence had become the biggest obstacle between two people who still mattered to each other. Their closest friend smiled knowingly and quietly replied, "Sometimes the hardest truth isn't admitting you care. It's admitting you never really stopped." The table fell silent again, but this time the silence felt lighter, almost hopeful. Before the night ended, one final exchange took place, an exchange that none of those friends would forget. And what was said in those closing moments may explain why your person woke up today seeing everything through a completely different lens. The conversation should have ended there. Everyone thought the biggest truth had already been spoken. But just as the server cleared the table and the group prepared to leave, one friend looked directly at your person and quietly asked, "If you already know how you feel, what are you waiting for?" The question didn't sound challenging. It sounded compassionate. And somehow, it was exactly the question your person had been avoiding for longer than anyone realized. Don't look away now, because what followed uncovered a fear that had remained hidden beneath every smile. Your person leaned back in their chair and let out a quiet laugh, not because anything was funny, but because sometimes people laugh when they're finally too tired to hide the truth. "I'm afraid," they admitted. The words were almost lost beneath the gentle sounds of the night. "Not afraid of loving them. I'm afraid that too much time has passed." Their friends immediately understood. One of them shared a story about missing an opportunity because they waited for the perfect moment, only to discover that perfection never arrives on schedule. Another friend simply said, "People don't always remember every mistake. Sometimes they remember who made them feel understood." Those words settled deeply. Your person's expression softened, as though a door inside had quietly begun to open. Stay with this, because someone at that table was about to offer advice that changed the entire direction of the night. A close friend reached across the table and smiled. "You keep imagining what could go wrong," they said. "Have you ever imagined what could go wonderfully right?" That single question created another long pause. For the first time that evening, your person wasn't looking at the past. They were picturing the future. A future where one honest conversation might replace months of uncertainty. A future where courage mattered more than perfect timing. They admitted they had written messages they never sent, started phone calls they never completed, and rehearsed words they hoped to say someday. Their friends didn't judge them. Instead, they reminded them that genuine feelings often deserve honest communication, even when the outcome is unknown. If this story is touching something inside you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you're enjoying the journey so far, sharing or subscribing helps more stories like this reach people who need them. But don't leave yet, the most unexpected realization of the evening was still waiting. As everyone stood to leave, the group walked together beneath the glow of the streetlights. The conversation had become lighter, but something inside your person had permanently changed. Before getting into their car, one friend quietly stopped them and said, "Tomorrow isn't guaranteed to feel easier than today. If your heart already knows the truth, don't keep asking it to stay silent." Your person didn't answer with words. They simply smiled, a calm, genuine smile their friends hadn't seen in a very long time. It wasn't the smile of someone who had solved every problem. It was the smile of someone who had finally stopped running from their own feelings. As they drove away into the quiet night, one decision stayed with them more than anything else. Maybe the next chapter wouldn't begin with waiting, maybe it would begin with one simple act of honesty. And by sunrise, an unexpected opportunity would appear, one that could bring everything they had admitted that night much closer to becoming real. Morning arrived quietly, but your person couldn't shake the feeling that last night's conversation had changed something inside them. The sunlight spilled through the window, yet their mind remained on the words their friends had shared beneath those glowing streetlights. They replayed every sentence, every pause, every expression. It wasn't regret they were feeling anymore. It was clarity. For the first time in a long while, the excuses that once sounded convincing now felt strangely empty. There was one thought they couldn't escape: if I stay silent now, I'll always wonder what could have happened. Hold on for the next few moments, because an ordinary morning was about to become far more meaningful than anyone expected. Instead of rushing into the day, your person slowed down. They made coffee but barely touched it. Their phone rested on the table within reach, yet they didn't pick it up immediately. They wanted this moment to be different from all the others. No impulsive decisions. No emotional reactions. Just honesty. They opened an old photo gallery, smiling softly at memories that had survived countless seasons. There were little moments most people would overlook: a shared laugh, a quiet walk, a conversation that lasted longer than planned. Those memories didn't remind them of what was lost. They reminded them of what had once felt completely real. As they sat there, one sentence from a friend echoed again: the people who truly matter rarely disappear from your heart without leaving a reason behind. That simple reminder filled the room with a quiet sense of hope. But before they could decide what to do next, something unexpected happened that no one could have predicted. Their phone lit up. It wasn't the message they had imagined, and it wasn't from the person they expected. It was a close friend from the night before. The text was short: "I've been thinking about our conversation. Just remember, you don't need perfect words. You only need honest ones." Your person stared at the screen for several seconds. They smiled, locked the phone, then unlocked it again. Their fingers hovered over the keyboard before pulling away. They stood up, paced across the room, then returned to the chair. This wasn't nervousness anymore. It was the realization that one decision could quietly reshape the direction of their life. Stay a little longer, because the next choice carried more meaning than anyone around them could see. Finally, your person opened a blank message. No dramatic speech. No elaborate explanation. Just a few sincere words that reflected exactly what had been admitted the night before. They read the message twice, then a third time. They deleted one sentence. Added another. They wanted every word to sound genuine, not rehearsed. Their heart was steady now. The fear that had once controlled every decision had grown noticeably smaller. They took one final breath and looked out the window as the morning breeze gently moved the trees outside. At that exact moment, something remarkable happened, not on the phone, but within themselves. Whether the message would be sent in the next few seconds or the next few hours no longer mattered as much as one incredible truth: they were finally ready to stop hiding. And before this day came to an end, one unexpected encounter would make them realize that the timing they had feared for so long might have been quietly working in their favor all along. Just when it seemed the hardest decision had already been made, life offered your person one more unexpected pause. Their thumb hovered over the send button, but before they could press it, they looked outside once more. The morning had become brighter, the streets busier, yet inside, everything felt unusually calm. It wasn't hesitation this time. It was the quiet realization that words carry weight when they're finally spoken from the heart. There was still one piece of the story they needed to understand before taking that final step. Stay with this, because the next few minutes revealed something no one at that dinner table could have anticipated. Instead of sending the message immediately, your person decided to take a short walk. Sometimes clarity arrives when you're moving instead of standing still. The familiar streets felt different, almost as if every corner held a reminder that life keeps creating new opportunities. While passing a small neighborhood cafe, they noticed two older friends laughing together over coffee. It wasn't the conversation that caught their attention, it was the ease between them. Years of trust could be seen without a single dramatic gesture. That simple moment sparked a quiet thought: meaningful relationships aren't built on perfect timing, they're built on honest moments repeated over time. Your person smiled, realizing they had spent far too long waiting for certainty instead of creating it. If this story has brought a smile to your face or reminded you of someone special, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this journey so far, subscribing is a simple way to stay connected for more stories like this. But don't go anywhere yet, because the most surprising part of the day was only beginning. As they continued walking, their phone vibrated again. This time it wasn't a message asking questions or offering advice. It was a simple photo sent by one of the friends from the previous night. A candid picture of everyone around the dinner table, smiling without realizing the camera had captured the moment. Along with the photo came one short caption: "Last night wasn't about the past. It was about your future." Your person stared at the image for a long moment. They noticed something they hadn't seen before. While everyone else was laughing, they themselves were looking off into the distance, lost in thought. Yet now, seeing that moment from another perspective, they understood something powerful: everyone around them had already believed they were ready. The only person who hadn't believed it yet was themselves. That realization lifted a burden they didn't even know they were carrying. Standing beneath the warm afternoon sky, your person unlocked their phone one last time. The message was still there, unchanged. This time there was no overthinking, no rewriting, no searching for flawless words. They simply smiled, took a steady breath, and pressed send. The screen returned to normal, but their world felt completely different. Not because they knew what the reply would be, but because they had finally chosen honesty over uncertainty. As they slipped the phone back into their pocket and continued walking, they noticed something they hadn't felt in a very long time: a quiet confidence that no outcome could take away. And somewhere, completely unaware of the courage it had taken, the person receiving that message was about to read the first sentence, a sentence that would open the door to a conversation neither of them would ever forget. A few quiet moments passed after the message was sent, and strangely, your person didn't rush to check the screen. For so long, they had believed that peace would only come after receiving an answer. But now they were discovering something unexpected. Sometimes peace begins the moment you stop hiding the truth. They slipped the phone into their pocket and kept walking, letting the afternoon unfold naturally. Every step felt lighter than the one before. Yet across town, another story was quietly beginning. Someone else had just noticed a new notification appear on their screen. Before you move on, stay with this moment, because the next decision would reshape more than one heart. The message wasn't long. It didn't rely on dramatic promises or perfect phrases. It simply expressed what had remained unspoken for far too long: appreciation, honesty, and the hope for one genuine conversation whenever the time felt right. Those words carried a quiet confidence that couldn't be mistaken for pressure. They were sincere. And sincerity has a way of reaching people differently. The phone rested untouched for several minutes. Then the screen lit up again. The message had been opened. No immediate reply followed. Instead, there were 3 familiar dots, then they disappeared. A few seconds later, they returned. Once again they vanished. Your person wasn't watching it happen, but somewhere, another heart was carefully choosing words just as thoughtfully as they had earlier that morning. There's one small detail here that most people would miss, and it explains why this silence felt completely different from every silence before. Meanwhile, your person's friends were still thinking about the conversation from the night before. One of them sent a cheerful text asking, "How are you feeling today?" The reply came almost instantly, "Lighter than I have in a long time." That simple answer brought smiles all around. They realized the biggest victory had never been about receiving the perfect response. It had been about finding the courage to be authentic. Later that afternoon, another friend quietly remarked, "Whatever happens next, you finally gave the truth a chance." Those words stayed with your person as they looked across the horizon. They weren't imagining impossible outcomes anymore. They were simply grateful that fear was no longer making every decision. Keep following this story, because what happened next wasn't loud or dramatic, it was something much more meaningful. As the sun slowly dipped lower, the phone vibrated once again. This time, there were no disappearing dots. No waiting. No uncertainty. A single reply had arrived. Your person looked at the screen, smiled softly, and closed their eyes for just a moment before reading it. They wanted to remember this feeling exactly as it was, the feeling of knowing that whatever those words said, they had already crossed the hardest bridge. Slowly, they unlocked the screen and began reading the first line. Their expression changed instantly, not with shock, but with quiet relief. The reply began with 6 simple words, "I've been hoping to hear this." Everything after that would lead to an entirely new conversation, one filled not with assumptions, but with honesty, understanding, and possibilities neither of them had expected. And before the day was over, one heartfelt invitation would arrive, opening the door to a meeting that had been waiting far longer than either of them realized. The words on the screen were simple, but they carried the kind of warmth that can't be manufactured. Your person read them once. Then again. Then a third time, just to be sure they hadn't imagined them. "I've been hoping to hear this." Those 6 words erased months of uncertainty in a matter of seconds. They didn't answer every question. They didn't promise a perfect future. But they did something even more powerful. They opened a door that both people had quietly been standing beside, waiting for someone to unlock first. Stay with this, because the conversation that followed revealed a truth neither of them had expected to hear. Your person took a slow breath before replying. This time there was no hesitation, no deleting entire paragraphs, no searching for flawless wording. They simply spoke from the heart. The messages became longer, more comfortable, almost effortless. They laughed about memories that still made them smile. They admitted there had been moments when they wanted to reach out but convinced themselves it wasn't the right time. To their surprise, the other person confessed something remarkably similar. They had also written messages they never sent. They had also replayed old conversations, wondering if they had missed their chance. Suddenly, both of them realized they had been living with the same silent questions while believing they were alone. One message stood out above all the others: maybe we were never as far apart as we thought. Read that line again in your mind, because it quietly changed the direction of everything that followed. As the afternoon faded into evening, the conversation grew even more genuine. They weren't trying to impress one another anymore. There was no need for carefully crafted versions of themselves. They spoke honestly about growth, about learning from time apart, and about how certain connections never completely disappear, they simply wait for the right moment to be understood. Somewhere in the middle of that,